Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for the brand new Roger Waters Dark Side of the Moon Redo Live Edition. This is being released on April 12th of 2025 as part of Record Store Day. So roughly a week from now, get in line, get your copy of this. It's being put out by Cooking Vinyl. I'm going to do a full review and unboxing of the album here in just a bit. But if you are new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this special review, a preview review for the brand new Roger Waters Dark Side of the Moon Redo Live Edition. So of course, we all know the classic history of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I'm not going to get into all of that, but 1973, it was their 8th studio album at the time, and it changed everything for Pink Floyd. Not only for them, but it also had a huge impact on the music industry, how albums were made, how they sounded. And a big part of that was Alan Parsons, who engineered it. And incidentally, little side plug, Cooking Vinyl is also putting out an Alan Parsons project, iRobot Works in Progress release for Record Store Day. So you can get this one and the Roger Waters at the same time if you want, have a little cool tie in there. But the Dark Side of the Moon from Floyd has spent longer on the Billboard charts than any other artist at over 990 weeks. It has sold over 15 million copies in the US and over 45 million copies around the world. It's also got career-defining songs for the band on it: Money, Time, Us and Them, Great Gig in the Sky, and is consistently ranked very high on all-time rock albums and lists of those nature that people do every year. Seemingly Dark Side of the Moon is always near the top. So 2023 rolls around and it makes total sense then that Roger Waters would want to do something to celebrate it. And Roger isn't one to just rest on his laurels and not do or to do the same thing over and over. And so what he does is a new reinterpretation of it and releases this, a studio version of Dark Side of the Moon Redo in 2023. And so this comes out, it's a much slower, darker sounding version of the album. And now we're getting this as part of Record Store Day. This Redo Live Edition. There is a full box set version of this for which the live tracks are included. I think it's on CD in there, but this is the only standalone edition of the Dark Side of the Moon Redo Live Edition of it. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So it was recorded over 2 sold-out dates at the London Palladium in October of 2023. The live performance from this, something very different than Roger would normally do, performing an album in its entirety like this. And considering that's the only time that he's done it, a very special thing too. What I noticed about this when listening to it, though, is how quiet the audience is. Now, maybe they're just absorbing everything. Maybe it has to do with the subtle, more somber nature of what this version, the redo, the studio edition of this was, that it didn't have the big ruckus rock versions that we know the classic Floyd version for. So either way, though, there is sort of a lack of audience noise. It doesn't really have a live feel to it, except when songs come to a close and audiences, do their applause and things of that nature in between it. And so you do hear that and realize, oh, okay, in fact, this is a live version, because during the first track when it started up, I actually questioned whether or not they had simply put the studio version on in place of it. But it does become clearer as the album goes on, or as the show goes on. There's much more life, I found, to the live edition of this than the studio album. And overall, it's now actually become my preferred version of his redo to Dark Side of the Moon. just further information on the studio version of it, because if you haven't checked it out, if you're not familiar with it and you're imagining this to be the Pink Floyd version of it, it's definitely not. It is a truly reimagined version of the classic album. It adds in narration, I believe, between almost every track. Much more somber approach than the original 73 version of this. It's very dark and just holistically something different. And that's an interesting thing, except that it's definitely not going to replace the Pink Floyd version of the album. But I don't think Roger was trying to do that. I don't think he's trying to surpass the Floyd version in any way. This was just a new interpretation, a new way to hear it, a reimagining, after a long life lived that Roger has, with all those different experiences and things, he can now bring that to the classic 1973 version of the album. All right, so let's take a look at this thing. We got the front cover of it here. Classic pyramid on it, the prism that breaks all the color, doing it a different way live where the light is radiating out from it. Of course, we got Roger in a bright pink jacket, maybe symbolic of Pink Floyd, who knows. We got a bigger picture of him on the back, but what I did notice is no track listing, no information of any kind on that. And when we pull this out, we get a beautiful, much closer shot up of Roger Waters and the live band performing. We do get all of the members who are performing, but incidentally, they don't mention where the show was done, or that it's from 2 sold-out shows, or that this is the only live performance of the redo edition. I had to look that information up, so I was a little bummed that that information was not included on the sleeve when I opened this up. Again, notice no track listing. Now, if you're a fan of Floyd and you know Dark Side of the Moon, you don't need a track listing, but for those people who might be buying this for the very first time and listening to this first, they should have it. But look at this, beautiful pink vinyl, translucent. And again, there's no side 1, side 2. You have to know that that is the front cover of the album, so it must be side A. That's the back cover of the album, so it must be side B. But all in all, I was very surprised by how limited the information was across the board on this. If nothing else, maybe a reason why Roger decided to redo Dark Side of the Moon, some insight into it, what this live version might have meant for him to be able to perform it. But none of that in here, though. Still a very good, interesting release to have for us diehard Pink Floyd fans. But mostly, I think if you're a Roger Waters fan, I think that's who this album is really going to be for. People who really, really want to dive into that and hear what the album might have sounded like if it was recorded in 2023 as opposed to 1973, 50 years earlier. Fortunately, it's not replacing the classic Floyd, so we still have that. But ultimately, no new revelations as far as the classic album is concerned. I think this does offer more enthusiasm, though, than the studio edition. Oftentimes, an artist feeding off of a live audience is going to bring that anyway. So it's probably what is occurring here. That said, as I mentioned earlier, not much audience noise, so it doesn't have the sort of ruckus, raw live feel that you might have expected. And I was actually anticipating that. So not part of this here, but it does capture a very singular moment in time for this one performance of it. And as I said, for me at least, this has become my definitive version over the studio edition from Roger Waters. I am enjoying this live version much more. And of course, it's being put out by Cooking Vinyl for Record Store Day. So if you are fascinated by this, you're interested in this, make sure you get in line April 12th at your local record store in order to get one of these. The quantity of this is only 2,000 copies, so not a lot of them are out there. It is a Record Store Day first, so I don't know if that is because it's being released in the box set or more versions of this will come out, but probably not on the pink vinyl because that is listed as limited edition. And I'll tell you what, it's beautiful watching that thing spin on the turntable. And there you go. That is my review for the Roger Waters Dark Side of the Moon redo live, put out by Cooking Vinyl. I want to thank them for sending me the album in advance so that I'd have it, be able to listen to it and review it for you guys out there. So hopefully you know if you'd like to get in line and get this. And I have to say, I think it's definitely worth it for you if you're a Pink Floyd fanatic like myself. All right, everyone. Take care, have a good one, and I hope to see you at Record Store Day 2025 this year. Bye-bye, everyone.